The first sight of the Molten River left me breathless, its glowing lava spilling over the jagged rocks, sizzling steam rising into the thick, acrid air. Ilara, the alien princess, stepped lightly across a narrow ledge, her eyes calm yet piercing, scanning for safe routes. I followed, armor hot from radiant heat, my boots threatening to slip on the glowing, unstable ground. Villagers and human soldiers trailed behind, their fear evident in every tremor, yet they trusted her guidance without hesitation. Humans endure by observation, courage, and improvisation, but her presence instilled a confidence far beyond ordinary resolve. Every brush of her hand, brief yet grounding, reminded me that survival and trust were inseparable. Sparks from molten rock shot into the air, sizzling against armor, and the acrid smell of sulfur filled our lungs. Twisting paths forced by lava. Flows required constant vigilance, but her calm determination turned every obstacle into a manageable challenge. Even the oppressive heat could not intimidate us under her steady gaze. The jungle-like terrain around the river seemed alive, each movement of the molten flow demanding attention and courage. A sudden tremor shook the ground as a bridge of rock partially collapsed into the river, scattering molten droplets across the path. Ilara quickly extended her hand toward me, helping me stabilize while signaling humans to hold positions. Humans survive through coordination, observation, and courage, yet her presence elevated every instinct I had. I guided villagers to safer footing, relying on her precise directions. Sparks from falling rocks hissed as they struck molten liquid, the air thick with heat and tension. Every touch of her hand reassured me, transforming fear into determination. Predators, fire-resistant creatures adapted to the molten environment, watched from nearby fissures, yet her courage made them seem manageable. Villagers followed her, silently, inspired by both awe and trust. Even the jagged rocks and glowing rivers became allies in navigation under her guidance. Her eyes, radiant in the firelight, became my constant beacon. The molten river twisted like a living serpent, forcing us to climb jagged ledges and duck under glowing steam vents. Ilara moved with fluid grace, pointing out weak spots in the rock, her eyes reflecting both the lava's glow and concern for our safety. Humans endure by vigilance, ingenuity, and courage, yet her presence amplified every skill and instinct I had. I coordinated human scouts to reinforce paths and stabilize rocks, heart racing but steadied by trust. Sparks flew as molten droplets landed on the jagged terrain, hissing and vaporizing instantly. Villagers whispered quietly among themselves, inspired by her calm authority and subtle warmth. Every glance exchanged reinforced trust. Every brush of her hand sent courage through me. Predators lurked, yet her presence transformed fear into precise action. Even the molten terrain seemed navigable under her guidance. Her courage and grace made each step feel purposeful, even in danger. By midday, the river narrowed, forming a natural choke point where molten currents threatened to engulf us from both sides. Ilara directed humans to safe positions along rocky ledges, moving with an unshakable confidence that steadied our nerves. Humans survive by strategy, observation, and teamwork, and her calm authority made each decision more precise. I reinforced paths and guided villagers, inspired by her subtle touches and steady gaze. Sparks flew from nearby vents, creating an ethereal glow as molten droplets hissed into the air. Every hand touch or glance reinforced trust, forming an unspoken bond. Predators circled from fissures and nearby rocks, yet they hesitated under her commanding presence. Even the twisting molten river seemed like an obstacle to overcome rather than a threat. Villagers followed her example, courage swelling in response to her leadership. Her eyes, steady and determined, gave me hope that we could survive anything as dusk fell. The lava's glow cast long shadows across jagged rocks, the heat radiating through armor and skin. Ilara moved among humans, offering subtle guidance and encouragement, each gesture reinforcing courage. Humans endure through resilience, strategy, and determination, and her calm authority elevated every instinct. I coordinated patrols and reinforced weak paths, heart steadied by her unwavering presence. Sparks from molten droplets hissed, steam rising as they struck rocks, adding urgency to each movement. Twisting ledges and unstable rocks blocked many obvious paths, yet her intuition revealed safer routes. Villagers moved carefully, inspired by her bravery and quiet warmth. Every glance we exchanged strengthened trust. Every subtle touch reassured me. Predators prowled in fissures, yet her presence rendered them secondary to our focus. Even the molten rivers, fierce and untamed, seemed to bend around her courage. Night fell fully, the glowing rivers casting eerie light across jagged terrain, steam curling in rising plumes. Ilara signaled humans to take defensive positions, her calm authority steadying anxious hearts. Humans survived through vigilance, adaptability, and courage, and her guidance elevated every human action. I assisted in guiding villagers across unstable ledges, inspired by her precise knowledge of the terrain. Sparks from molten rock hissed against armor, every step filled with tension and calculated care. Every hand brush and glance reinforced trust, an unspoken promise in the heat of danger. Predators circled, observing cautiously, but her presence ensured we moved as one. Villagers mirrored her measured movements, courage growing in response, twisting molten channels no longer blocked paths but offered opportunities for careful navigation. Her courage had become a living beacon, illuminating every step in the molten chaos. By midnight, heat from the molten rivers intensified, smoke and steam curling across jagged terrain as fissures belched sparks. Ilara led a human scout team to secure higher ledges, her glowing eyes cutting through the steam and darkness. Humans endure through observation, strategy, and teamwork. Yet her presence made each decision sharper and more confident. I guided villagers and soldiers, reinforcing pathways and stabilizing rocks, heart steady from trust. Sparks and molten. Droplets hissed violently, yet her calm composure reassured us. Every glance, every brief touch of her hand sent courage surging through me. Predators moved cautiously, but her presence and tactical precision kept them at bay. Villagers followed silently, inspired by her fearlessness and subtle warmth. Even the molten chaos became navigable under her leadership. Her courage had become the pulse guiding our survival. As dawn broke, molten rivers reflected the red-orange sky, steam rising and twisting in the air. Ilara moved gracefully among humans and villagers, checking paths, offering reassurance, and ensuring safety. Humans survive through vigilance, adaptability, and courage, and her presence amplified every instinct and skill. Sparks hissed from molten rock as new fissures opened, yet we moved with precision under her guidance. Twisting ledges and unstable terrain became tools rather than barriers, navigated through her intuition. Every glance and touch reinforced trust, courage flowing between us. Predators lingered, cautious yet constrained by her commanding presence. Villagers mimicked her movements, inspired by bravery and subtle warmth. Even the molten rivers, fierce and threatening, seemed to bend to her will. Her eyes, steady and determined, gave me hope that we could survive this inferno together. By mid-morning, the river's molten flow had created a final choke point, forcing a tense crossing over narrow ledges. Ilara coordinated humans, guiding paths, and giving subtle encouragement to frightened villagers. Humans endure through courage, observation, and teamwork, yet her presence made each action more precise. Sparks and molten droplets hissed violently around us, yet her calm composure steadied our hearts. Every touch and glance strengthened the unspoken bond, courage flowing in both directions. Predators circled fissures cautiously, hesitant under her presence. Twisting molten paths blocked simple escape, but she navigated expertly. Villagers followed with growing confidence, inspired by her bravery. Even the heat and chaos of molten rivers could not shake our focus. Her courage had become the guiding force leading all of us forward. The morning heat from the molten rivers was almost unbearable, steam rising in thick clouds around jagged ledges. Ilara moved confidently ahead, her glowing eyes scanning the terrain for unstable rocks and fissures. I followed closely, adjusting my pace to avoid slipping on the wet, molten stone. Humans endure through vigilance, strategy, and courage, yet her presence made each step feel assured and precise. Sparks sizzled as molten droplets landed on armor and rocks, each hiss a warning of danger. Villagers and soldiers followed her, lead without hesitation, inspired by her calm authority. Every brush of her hand against mine reassured me, grounding both courage and hope. Predators watched from fissures, but even they seemed hesitant before her command. Twisting lava channels created impossible paths that she somehow made navigable. Her determination and calm focus turned chaos into calculated progress. By mid-morning, a massive eruption from a fissure sent molten rock cascading down the slopes, threatening to engulf our path. Ilara signaled humans to spread out, moving with unshakable precision and protective care. Humans survived through teamwork, observation, and quick adaptation, yet her leadership magnified every instinct. I coordinated villagers to reinforce rocky ledges and stabilize paths, heart-pounding yet steady under her guidance. Sparks flew violently as molten droplets hit, armor and jagged stones. Every glance exchanged reinforced trust, every subtle touch passed strength and courage. Predators prowled cautiously nearby, deterred by her commanding presence. Twisting channels forced us into narrow paths, yet she navigated expertly. Villagers mirrored her calm and decisive movements. Her courage had become the anchor of our survival, guiding us through fire and chaos. As noon approached, the lava rivers became more aggressive, spitting molten spray onto the rocks we depended upon. Ilara paused briefly, assessing unstable paths, then gestured for us to follow a safer route she had identified. Humans endure through observation, coordination, and bravery, yet her calm and decisive action inspired confidence beyond mere training. I guided villagers along narrow ledges, every step critical, every movement measured. Sparks hissed as molten droplets struck rock and armor, adding tension and urgency to each step. Predators circled, cautious yet relentless, but her steady gaze made fear manageable. Every brush of her hand reassured me. Every glance reminded me why survival depended on trust. Twisting channels, once obstacles, now offered strategic advantages. Under her guidance, villagers moved silently, confidence growing with every careful step. Her courage and resolve radiated outward, uplifting everyone in the molten chaos. Dusk brought an eerie glow as molten rivers reflected the fiery sunset, creating an inferno-like landscape. Ilara directed humans to secure high ledges, her calm authority steadying nerves amid the blazing terrain. Humans survived through vigilance, teamwork, and courage, and her presence made each movement purposeful and precise. I reinforced traps and stabilized precarious rocks, inspired by her confidence. Sparks hissed from molten droplets, steam curling upward, adding urgency to every action. Every glance and touch reinforced trust, courage flowing silently between us. Predators remained in fissures, watching but hesitant, as her authority kept danger in check. Twisting channels blocked obvious paths, yet her insight revealed navigable routes. Villagers followed her lead, gaining confidence with each step. Her courage became the pulse of the group, illuminating a path through the fiery landscape. Night fell fully, molten rivers glowing ominously under a dark sky streaked with smoke. Ilara moved among humans, offering quiet guidance, each gesture, both protective and reassuring. Humans endure through courage, observation, and resilience, yet her calm presence amplified every instinct and skill. Sparks from molten rocks hissed violently, highlighting the treacherous terrain. Every brush of her hand or glance reinforced trust and confidence. Predators prowled cautiously in fissures and jagged ledges, deterred by her commanding presence. Villagers moved efficiently, inspired by her courage and subtle warmth. Twisting channels blocked some paths, yet she navigated them expertly. Even the molten rivers, fierce and unpredictable, became manageable under her leadership. Her eyes, glowing with determination, gave hope to everyone around her. By early morning, a violent eruption sent molten torrents cascading dangerously close to our path. Ilara moved decisively, signaling humans to safer ledges, her presence steady and reassuring. Humans survived through observation, teamwork, and courage, yet her example made every action sharper and more confident. I assisted villagers, stabilizing ledges and guiding them across narrow paths, heart steady under her authority. Sparks and molten droplets hissed around us, creating an almost surreal battle of fire and survival. Every glance and subtle touch exchanged between us reinforced trust and courage. Predators circled, hesitant under her influence, unsure how to approach. Twisting lava paths forced careful navigation, yet she led the way without hesitation. Villagers mirrored her bravery, their fear replaced by cautious confidence. Her courage and guidance turned chaos into strategy. By late morning, molten rivers created a near-impossible crossing, with jagged rocks and steam obscuring vision. Ilara paused briefly, mapping the safest route for humans and villagers, her eyes glowing with determination. Humans endure through strategy, vigilance, and teamwork, yet her calm authority elevated every instinct. I helped reinforce unstable ledges and direct movement, confidence growing under her guidance. Sparks flew from molten droplets striking, rocks and armor, tension rising with each step. Every glance and touch passed reassurance and courage, the bond between us strengthening. Predators lingered, wary of approaching too closely, sensing authority in her movements. Twisting channels blocked obvious paths, yet she navigated them like a master strategist. Villagers followed obediently, inspired by her bravery. Even the rivers, violent and molten, seemed manageable under her command. As dusk approached, molten rivers glowed red-orange under the fading sun, steam curling around jagged rocks. Ilara directed humans to strategic positions, offering encouragement and guidance that steadied frightened hearts. Humans survived through observation, coordination, and courage. Yet her calm authority made every step deliberate and assured. Sparks hissed from molten droplets, the air thick with heat and tension. Every glance and subtle touch reinforced trust, courage spreading silently through the group. Predators observed from fissures, hesitant to approach under her watchful gaze. Twisting channels created natural barriers, now navigable thanks to her insight. Villagers mirrored her actions, bravery growing with every careful step. Even the molten rivers, fierce and unpredictable, yielded under her leadership. Her courage became the unifying pulse of survival, a beacon through danger and uncertainty. The molten river's roar was deafening as dawn broke, molten streams surging unpredictably across the jagged terrain. Ilara moved decisively, her glowing eyes scanning for unstable rocks and weak paths, while signaling humans to hold positions. Humans endure through vigilance, strategy, and courage. Yet her presence made every decision sharper and more confident. I reinforced fragile ledges and guided villagers across narrow paths, inspired by her calm authority. Sparks and molten droplets hissed violently, adding urgency to each movement. Every touch of her hand reinforced trust, every glance instilled hope. Predators lurked in fissures, watching carefully, yet her authority kept them at bay. Twisting. Channels blocked simple paths, yet she led effortlessly. Villagers mirrored her courage, their fear replaced by cautious confidence. Her bravery became the pulse that guided us all forward. By mid-morning, a massive eruption from a distant fissure sent molten lava cascading dangerously close to our path. Ilara signaled humans to spread out and move to higher ledges, her movements fluid and precise. Humans survived through teamwork, observation, and quick adaptation, yet her calm composure inspired confidence beyond training. I coordinated villagers, reinforcing paths and stabilizing rocks, my heartbeat steady under her presence. Sparks hissed as molten droplets struck jagged terrain, steam curling in thick clouds. Every glance exchanged, and every brush of her hand passed courage and reassurance. Predators prowled cautiously, hesitant to strike with her nearby. Twisting lava channels forced careful navigation, yet she led without hesitation. Villagers followed, her silently, courage growing in response. Her courage had become the beacon illuminating our survival. As noon approached, molten rivers swelled, spitting streams of lava across the jagged rocks, threatening to engulf us. Ilara assessed the safest route, her hand brushing mine as she guided humans and villagers alike. Humans endure through vigilance, coordination, and courage, yet her presence amplified every skill and instinct. Sparks hissed violently as molten droplets struck armor and stone, tension rising with every step. Predators circled nearby, but her calm authority made fear manageable. Twisting paths that seemed impassable were transformed into strategic passageways under her guidance. Villagers followed obediently, inspired by her bravery and subtle warmth. Every glance and touch between us reinforced trust and hope. Even the molten chaos, threatening and unpredictable, seemed manageable under her leadership. Her courage had become the lifeline of our survival, the heartbeat in the inferno. By late afternoon, the lava river narrowed into a final perilous gorge. Steam rising in thick plumes, the air almost unbreathable. Ilara directed humans to hold high ledges, coordinating traps and marking safe routes with unshakable precision. Humans survived through strategy, observation, and courage, yet her authority inspired an unbreakable confidence in all of us. I assisted in stabilizing paths and guiding villagers, heart steady from trust in her judgment. Sparks flew from molten droplets, sizzling on armor and stone, each a reminder of danger. Every hand touch or glance passed reassurance and strength. Predators lingered, cautious and constrained by her presence. Twisting lava paths blocked simple routes, yet she navigated them expertly. Villagers followed her silently, courage swelling with each careful step. Her eyes, glowing with determination, gave me hope that survival, and perhaps something more, was possible. Night fell, molten rivers reflecting the fiery sky, steam curling across jagged rocks, shadows dancing ominously. Ilara moved among humans, offering subtle guidance and reassurance, her calm presence steadying anxious hearts. Humans endure through vigilance, teamwork, and courage, and her leadership elevated every instinct and action. Sparks hissed as molten droplets struck armor and jagged stones, yet we moved with precision under her guidance. Every glance and brush of her hand reinforced trust and hope. Predators watched cautiously from fissures, hesitant to approach. Twisting channels blocked obvious paths, yet she navigated them like a master strategist. Villagers mirrored her movements, bravery growing with every careful step. Even the molten rivers, fierce and untamed, seemed subdued under her authority. Her courage had become a living beacon, guiding everyone forward. By early morning, a final surge of molten rivers threatened to cut off retreat entirely, lava boiling over jagged ledges. Ilara assessed the terrain, extending her hand to me, her gaze steady and unwavering. Humans survive through strategy, observation, and courage, yet her calm authority elevated every instinct. Sparks hissed violently as molten droplets struck. Rocks and armor, the heat almost unbearable. Every glance exchanged, and every touch strengthened trust and courage. Predators lurked in fissures, but her authority kept them at bay. Twisting channels blocked simple escape, yet she led with unwavering precision. Villagers followed her, inspired by her courage and subtle warmth. Even in the heart of molten chaos, hope remained, anchored in her unwavering gaze. Her courage had become the guiding light through fire and peril. By mid-morning, our group approached the final ledge, lava rivers swirling violently below, steam rising in thick curtains. Ilara signaled humans and villagers to move carefully, her calm authority steadying nerves amid the inferno. Humans endure through vigilance, teamwork, and courage, and her leadership made every movement deliberate and precise. Sparks hissed as molten droplets struck stone and armor, each step laden with tension. Every touch and glance between us reinforced trust, courage flowing silently through the group. Predators observed from fissures, hesitant to approach under her influence. Twisting channels created natural barriers, now navigable thanks to her insight. Villagers followed obediently, bravery swelling with every careful step. Even the molten, rivers fierce and unpredictable, yielded under her guidance. Her courage had become the pulse of survival, a beacon through danger. As dusk approached, the molten rivers glowed red-orange under a darkening sky streaked with smoke. Ilara directed humans to strategic positions, offering guidance and subtle reassurance that steadied frightened hearts. Humans survived through observation, coordination, and courage, yet her calm authority inspired confidence far beyond ordinary training. Sparks hissed as molten droplets struck jagged rocks, each a reminder of the precarious terrain. Every glance exchanged and every brush of her hand reinforced trust and courage. Predators lurked in fissures, cautious and constrained by her authority. Twisting channels blocked obvious paths, yet she navigated them expertly. Villagers mirrored her movements, bravery growing with each careful step. Even the molten chaos, fierce and untamed, seemed manageable under her leadership. Her eyes, steady and determined, gave hope that we could survive together. By nightfall, the final stretch of the molten river lay behind us, the heat fading into glowing embers across jagged rocks. Ilara stood beside me, hand brushing mine, eyes reflecting both the firelight and a profound warmth. Humans endure through courage, vigilance, and teamwork, and her presence had elevated every instinct and skill. Sparks sizzled on rocks as cooling, molten droplets hissed, marking the battlefield. We had survived. Every glance and touch reinforced trust. Every heartbeat connected ours. Predators had vanished, deterred by her commanding presence and precise tactics. Twisting channels, once deadly obstacles, now marked the path we had conquered. Villagers moved silently, awe and gratitude evident in every step. Even the molten rivers, once terrifying, now seemed like a challenge we had mastered. Her courage, her presence, had not only guided survival, it had inspired love,